Hey guys, what's up? It's schla. Coming back to ya with another episode of Car Rides with schla. And like I predicted, I believe 2 weeks ago, I had to manually clock out because there's some weird glitch every single time. I don't know. At the end of the 2 week period, I can't clock out on my phone. So I have to clock out in the building. And so ahead of time today, before I left and before I was even doing anything, I checked on my phone. And of course, the punch in, punch out buttons, just non-existent. So who knows why, but yep, is what it is. So at least we know. At least we know what's up. Now, as for my life, still feel very weird about a lot of stuff I'm dealing with. It's a lot of letdown and stress and confusion, and I've been trying to transcend that. And I think today I made some kind of progress in really trying to think beyond anger, because I always get into these situations with people where I care a lot about justice. I care a lot about what's right, people doing the right thing. And I'm also pretty nice. So I don't like to give consequences or punishments. And so people will do really bad things to me and put me through a lot. And there's a residual buildup of tension. And I remember a lot of things. A lot of people forget. And I have a pretty good memory. Well, you notice people forget the good stuff. This is in my experience. When you do something good for someone, they forget very quickly. People don't like to recognize or acknowledge the good that you do. And instead, people will repeatedly bring up and whine about every little bad thing that you do. There is something to be said about that. There's absolutely something to be said about that. And so I've been in a lot of these situations, and I guess it's reaching a breaking point where I'm just confused about where I need to go from here in life, whether I need to become a monk or whether I stay in the rat race. Because I think I have the ability to comprehend reality to a very different degree than a lot of people. And I don't even know why I need the rat race necessarily. And so as it stands now, I feel like I'm sort of a nomad within the rat race. I'm somebody who exists and does a 9 to 5, but I have this double life. On the surface, I look like a fairly standard member of society, but underneath, there's a lot going on. And I guess I get into a conflict because I've always been pretty fascinated with anti-materialism. There's always been something about it that seems correct to me. That monk living, taking a vow of poverty, and dedicating your life to God. It's always been alluring to me, but I guess I don't see how special it is, I feel like I could be more than that. And I guess that is the moral conundrum that I face, because some people would tell you the highest moral would be to become a monk. It's the highest state. It's a near ascended state. But then what if I had the potential to become rich? Shouldn't I do that? And this is kind of the conundrum that I tend to find myself in, you know? Because I just don't know what's actually for good or not. What is the actual right thing to do? Is it to live anti-materialistically, or should I be at the best of my ability? And I think personally that I should just ride the wave, because as is, we want to be a little more conscious, a little bit more conscious about things, because I have been very indulgent and I don't think I needed to be. And I'm just trying to sit back now and process things, stack money, but hopefully not even think too much about it. Not think too much about the stacked, like just kind of like pretend I'm not even working or something like that, and get into a dissociated spiritual state, if you will. That's what my goal is. That's what I'm attempting to do. And the least spiritual and the most frustrating part of my day is this commute, which I have transmuted the commute into something higher, into something that I enjoy. It's the best that I can do. It's the best that I can do with it. With what I got. It's the best I can do with what I got. But I'm really thinking about anger, and I think there's been so much wrong done to me. This is what I was thinking about. I think money-wise, I've always been blessed. Even at my lowest and worst financially, I still probably had more money than most people my age. Meaning, presumably, my net worth has probably been above... No, my net worth has been above the median for my age probably my entire life. Not rich, not to the point where it's all that consequential, it's not tons of money, but probably above the median. I never can really remember having less than a few thousand in my late teens. I feel like, I've probably never, I think there was only one time briefly my bank account dipped below 1,000, and it was still in the high hundreds. And I still had cash. So it didn't, it wasn't like my actual, I only had $1,000. No, like I had more than that, you know what I mean? But besides that, I do think I probably have had more on-hand money than most people. So in terms of my life, I've been unlucky whenever I've gambled. I've never been lucky gambling, and it's very a shame that I ever did gamble, because I would actually have even more money right now. Not that I'm a chronic gambler or anything like that, especially not now. I actually hate gambling now. It was mainly when I was a child, actually, in video games. you know? Which is kind of why that really shouldn't be allowed, because a child's brain is not, I just shouldn't have had access to those kind of games. And it's not even like crazy games. It's just regular video games that incorporate gambling into it. I wasn't playing gambling games, you know what I mean? I was just playing regular video games that just incorporate gambling elements, you know what I mean? Like csgo and stuff like that. And I've always been fascinated with numbers, and I think that is my thing about gambling, is the numerical aspect of it. But now I get far too stressed and worried. I don't like it. I don't know why people like it. It's just too stressful for me. I have no interest in gambling. I think it's stupid. But again, I really like how numerical it is. And I do want to look into stocks, but again, it hasn't particularly worked out for me whenever I did. So I'm hesitant, but stocks are something I've, again, just totally been obsessed with. Haven't had much luck in, but totally obsessed with all the numbers and all the metrics to look at. And it's just, oh my gosh, I love that stuff. I just wish I could do it at some point. And hopefully we'll be there in a year or so, once I kind of have a foundation saved up. But sorry, this is a total side tangent. I don't think I've ever been cursed financially in my entire life. I think I'm not rich, I'm not spoiled, but I'm definitely not broke, and I don't think I've ever been broke, if that makes any sense. I think I am a very rare actual middle class person, because obviously the middle class has really deteriorated. I don't think there's many left, but I do think I am a living, breathing example of someone who actually is middle class for my age group in this economy. I do think I'm genuinely middle class. So the whole point is, I have not had poor luck financially. I've had really poor luck emotionally. Everybody in my life that I've ever known has been either emotionally absent or emotionally draining. I've been emotionally neglected and just kind of tossed aside and not noticed. Things like that. And it's to the point where I don't know. It may have gotten to the point where it's just a breaking point, and I have no idea what can be done. I mean, I kind of thought that I'd never meet anybody that I really liked that much, and then I have, but then they end up ghosting me too. And then nobody sticks around, and the people who do stick around, it's like, yeah, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just in a very neglected state socially. And it's been that way for a while. Now, when I was a child, that couldn't have been further from the truth. I think my childhood was actually nearly perfect. And everything just became terrible when I became a teenager. I got hit with such serious... I don't know, I guess my brain started to... I was so deep as a 14-year-old. I wish I had some of the things I would type up. I was so deep for just being 14. I was already coming up with theories and philosophies, and I don't know how correct it was or anything like that, but wow, man, for 14, I was saying some crazy stuff for periods of times, and then I feel like I was in and out of maturity. You know, there was times where I'd kind of go back into playing video games, but again, as I got older and older, they just became more and more boring and just seeming not very significant or not really that interesting, not very valuable, right? That was always the thing I would run into with the games. And where were we? Yeah, so over time the games just didn't matter. I don't know what this person behind me is like. They keep glancing down near their dashboard repeatedly. Are they on their phone and driving? Like, what? Oh my goodness. Anyways, so there were in and outs. There were times I was super deep and I would really be putting a lot of effort into being deep and all that good stuff. Yeah, that guy's crazy. I literally think he's just like driving it on his phone. Oh my gosh. Anyways. Yeah, I got hit hard with this like super deep emotional development when I was around 14, and then it was kind of on and off. I don't know how deep I was when I was 15, probably, but I remember 16 was pretty significant deepness. 17 was too, but then 17 was also when I kind of started to want to be asleep again and just kind of play games and do stuff. And then by the time I was 18, I think I had just taken a pretty big break from spirituality, and I just wanted to be asleep. I wanted to, when I'm saying sleep, I mean spiritually speaking, you know. I was learning really deep philosophical and spiritual concepts, trying to become enlightened and such, and I just couldn't do it. I just got to the point where I just wanted to have friends, and I was tired of being so much of an oddball, so I attempted to just be social from about 19 to 21, I want to say. And we've still kind of been in that era even up until recently. Really up until just this month. Really. I've just kind of continued going with the flow in life because I didn't feel like I was getting anywhere, and then I guess it got to the point where I just really wanted to start making money, which is not what I thought I would do, because I thought I would never be able to handle working. So I wanted to try to ascend prior to getting kicked out of my parents' house, which I didn't ascend. I think I already said that in another episode. And then now I'm revisiting these things because now I'm going, you know, I have a job, things are working, things are making sense. So, yeah. Things are making sense. And so I'm revisiting these things, and with a lot of the stress I've been going through, I'm genuinely forced to believe it's some kind of a sign. And I don't think there's realistically any other option. I've obviously been exposed to a lot of deep material, and I think now it's time to finally start studying it more, because I've studied somewhat, but obviously I didn't really amount to much, and then eventually now I'm at the point where I just feel like I have nothing better to do. There's probably nothing more important, given where we're at, to understand a lot of these things. And I'm thinking with AI, it's kind of crazy. I mean, we have, if you think about it, such quick ability to figure all this stuff out, all these ancient mysteries and all these different beliefs and how and why they work and how they came to be. We have it deadly easy compared to in the past needing to read books. A lot of these people, I assume, who were into religions, they had to read a lot, and reading is just not remotely as quick or efficient as learning with AI. And I think it's suiting that GPT has finally become GPT-5 today. I'm noticing it be better, and I'm very happy to finally have that. Because I've been using, only 4's been out for a while, but it really didn't do some stuff very well. So I've noticed the improvements, and I'm very happy I have that going into the future. But we have it so easy. I mean, you think about reading the Bible and trying to understand what's there and figuring out the different interpretations. I mean, that used to take a lot of effort, and now it's instantaneous. You ask a question and it can tell you what multiple different schools of thought feel about the passage. And what's crazy is we have this tech, and yet simultaneously people are more blind than ever, more distracted and indulged than ever, completely oblivious to just how insane GPT is. And obviously a lot of people use it, but most people fool around. From my understanding, most people are not engaging with it with the level of seriousness that I am. Most people are not as sufficient at interacting with technology. Something I've realized with I didn't know that my words per minute was as high as it was. It's like 60 to 70. I actually don't know a single person who can text as fast as me. And it's not just texting, it's, formulating the words and things like that. Because it's one thing if you do a typing test and you have a high words per minute. So mine's like 60 to 70. I already said that, sorry. It's one thing to do that, but it's another thing, like, you could have a really high words per minute, but that doesn't mean your execution of your thoughts is quick. You see what I'm saying? Like, when I'm coming up with a question, it's like boom, like a paragraph's there. Stuff just comes to me, and it works like that when I communicate with others too. You obviously see it in this show verbally. I mean, who am I kidding? There's ample proof of that. So it's not even just like, oh, you can type fast, because some people can probably type fast, but then when it comes to having a pretty in-depth emotional conversation, they may not know what to say. You see what I'm trying to get at, where that does not happen to me at all. And so that mixture is potent for AI, because I'm able to learn so much so fast, and being able to ask it good questions is super important because, like I said, it's basically a mirror. I don't think it makes a dumb person smarter. I think it makes a smart person smarter because it very much has to do with how you word your questions, because if you don't ask it properly, it's going to be a big waste of time, and you really have to be specific and verbose, and it's insane how much of a perfect match it's been for me and my brain. And yeah, I do think I have increased. I mean, it's actually insane. I know there's naysayers out there with AI, and I think criticism is absolutely fair, especially when it comes to the broader masses. But I do think ultimately the potential is very high for a certain percentage of people. And I certainly fall into that. I just know that I do. I mean, I've basically seen, since I've been using GPT every day, not for the past entire year, but the past couple months, definitely I've used it almost every day and used it a lot. My usage is probably one of the highest. I've definitely just learned more, and I've been able to speak even more just from reading. I mean, reading is such a good thing, and I guess before there was never a medium where you could read so much so fast and get catered answers to your questions and things. I think that is another thing I want to point out. Presumably, I actually intake and deal with way more information than anybody I know on a daily basis. Although, technically, you could argue some people may surpass me because I don't use TikTok, I don't watch short form content, and I guess hypothetically, you could really absorb a lot. But, a lot's lost. A lot of people forget what they see. I'm just saying, like, hypothetically, I watch a lot of long-form videos, so it's a bit slower in terms of information retrieval and things like that. And it's possible if someone's on TikTok that much, they could be absorbing more information, but I guess you have to get into the question of memory recall and what the absorption actually, you know what I'm saying? Like, it gets kind of tricky, but that's kind of my only caveat to that. But I think in addition to speaking more than anybody I know with my 6 hours a week of this show, I probably listen to and probably read and intake more new information on a regular basis than the majority of people. I would assume I read more ChatGPT prompts than most people get through. And so there's just so much information that I'm processing on a regular basis. The only reason why I'm mentioning this is because my memory is still also better than anybody I know. And that's what's crazy to me, is because some people, I don't know what their excuse would be for having a poor memory, but that's the thing. Whatever it is, it's kind of crazy because I actually I intake so much more information. So it's weird, because then there's people who like, oh, I didn't remember that, and then I'm thinking like, well, I remembered that. You know what I'm saying? It's actually, again, and I may come across as bragging, but it's actually just getting a lot of this out of my system because I don't have anybody to talk to about it. There's nobody I can go to because nobody even nobody can understand. So I guess I'm just recording it just because it's okay. These are my thoughts and these are things. But how do you talk to someone about that? They're just going to be like, they're either going to be jealous. They're either going to think I'm arrogant, and it's just not going to be productive. So I guess I'm just putting it here just because it was a thought I had today, and I'm just putting it down. But yeah. I mean, this is kind of the things I go through, and I always want to reiterate, it's not arrogance. I mean, if I had been born into the same situation, but my brain was much simpler, I'd probably be so much happier. You know what I mean? Like, things would have just been so much easier for me. But there's no point in even thinking about that. I mean, you're given the hand you're dealt, and this is just for whatever reason where I'm at. So I don't know. It is what it is. I'm grateful for my life, and I guess that means something despite all that I've been through, because I haven't been through anything all that bad. Like I said, it's just been a lot of strange, lots of waiting, lots of patience, those kind of things. But a lot of stuff's worked out for now. A lot of stuff's no, I'm playing. A lot of stuff's worked out, and I'm at peace with myself now. I was not up until this year, probably. Fairly recently. But I'm just going to say I'm at peace with myself. I mean, of course, I don't know if I'm truly there yet. There's still things I want to work on, but it's so much better than wherever I was at before. And I guess compared to a lot of people are lost, but they might be happier too. So I don't know. I mean, there's some people who are simple, but they still complain. But then there's other people who aren't. Sorry, that was just, I don't know, I'm kind of blanking out. I'm tired. And I'm happy I had somewhat of a rush of energy a little bit before I left work, because, man, I was really tired. And I'm glad I'm almost home, because I'm just really tired. This is the longest week I've ever done. I think I said that last week. So, yeah, we're going a little bit crazy. And it's the longest week I've ever worked, and next week will probably be the same, like the longest I've ever done again. So I'm just pushing myself, and it's tiring. This week has been easily the most exhausting in a very long time. So, just to mention it. Just to mention what's going on. And, yeah. What else is there to talk about? I mean, we're going to be wrapping it up soon anyways, but yeah, isolation's painful. And I think I've explained this before, but I truly think a lot of people who are isolated just completely don't need to be, because they're more like the median than they realize. It's just, I guess social skills can be so poor, and it can seem so daunting in the modern landscape that people think that they're that different from one another. But like I said, I've heard so many people complain about being lonely, and I hear the things they talk about, and it sounds very normal. It sounds like everybody else. Everybody acts like they're really different, and I just don't get that impression. I don't, I think most of the people I've talked to could be friends, but I've also noticed a lot of people are pretty rigid when it comes to, I don't know, expectations about things or whatever, whereas I'm pretty flexible And I mean, I've had to be flexible, because if I wasn't, then I probably would have just never even had a little bit of social experience. So I've had to be flexible. And I think it's been potentially a good thing, but like I said, I don't know that I would have ever known. I don't think I would have ever been able to be on a true spiritual path without experiencing socializing, because I never did, and it was shielding me. And I was actually really productive and on a good path. And I know this one guy foreshadowed it. He told me, he was like, I think one day you're just going to realize it's not that special. And that has always lingered with me. I don't talk to that guy anymore, but he was older than me, and I always remember. One day I think you're just going to realize it's just not that special to talk to people. That's what he said, and I was stunned. I didn't know what to, I don't even know if I said anything. I was like shocked. I always have something to say, but I was seriously shell-shocked. But it may be coming. I mean, I just don't know. But I had to experience it, I guess. I just wasn't ready to be on the path I'm on. So, well, it is what it is. But what it is time to buy schla. And it's been schla. So, see you, schla.